All right, being after 6 o'clock, I'll call the Marathon County Board of Supervisors to order. First item on the agenda is Pledge of Allegiance. Please remain standing. Following the Pledge of Allegiance will be a silent moment of reflection. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We will have the reading of the notice, please.
The adjourned organizational meeting of the Marathon County Board of Supervisors, composed of 38 members, will convene at the Marathon County Courthouse, 500 Forest Street, Wausau, on Tuesday, August 25th, and the agenda was duly signed and posted.
Thank you. I would like to request everyone please silence their cell phones and any other electronic devices as to not be an interruption to the meeting. And I thank you for your indulgence. Proceeding on to roll call, and I'd ask all of the supervisors to please sign in. Thank you, and I'd like to welcome all of the visitors that we have with us this evening, and especially and also the viewing audience, and thank you for your interest in county government. We'll move on to item B, educational presentations and or reports. Standing committee chairpersons or designees. Any reports from standing committee chairs or designees? All right, seeing none, we'll proceed onward to consent agenda, item number C8 through item C13C1. What is your pleasure? Motion by Supervisor Rosenberg, second by Supervisor Zhang. Supervisor Arstead, please. Supervisor Arstead requests to speak.
Thank you. I would like to remove C11A for a separate vote.
Item C11A. Okay. All right, that's been removed. Any other discussion on the consent agenda items C8 through items C13, C1 with item 11A removed? Any further discussion? Supervisor Krems, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Can I just confirm that we are looking at approving C4A right now? Is that correct? If so, I'd like to just make a quick statement regarding it.
C4.
Resolution authorizing staff to proceed with Phase 3 construction of proposed new highway facility. Is that being discussed right now?
Yes, that's in.
Oh, wait.
No, that's separate. That should be separate.
That's over here, R49.
R49-26 is over on items E, excuse me.
It's not in consent.
It's not, so your item is not in consent agenda. Your item is item E18 that you're referring to, authorizing staff to proceed with Phase 3, construction of the proposed highway facility, Resolution 49-26.
That is correct.
That is item E18. You are not voting on that. You're voting on items C8 through items C13-1.
Thank you.
Excluding item 11A. Any other discussion? Okay, we will proceed to vote. And we'll proceed. And the motion is carried and is unanimous. Thank you. Now, item 11A, Infrastructure Committee Chair. What is your pleasure? The motion is still on the table. Supervisor Arstead, please.
Thank you, Chair Gibbs. First of all, I have nothing against Supervisor Greiner, but there is a better choice. Supervisor Gao has proven himself by representing his constituents after the tornado ripped through the community of Ringgold, leaving a wave of destruction. He listens well, which is evident in his concerns with the wind project, listening session from concerned citizens. He's very insightful and has questions at committee meetings as well as county board meetings. His career/professional background includes serving in another county as a supervisor for a number of years. Selected as vice chair of infrastructure, he's proven to be valuable to that committee as a vice chair. Even though he doesn't have tenure with the Marathon County, he has proven to be up to the challenge. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Dickinson, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So as the current active chair of infrastructure, I just want to make a couple comments. And as someone who used to be the vice chair of this board, when I was vice chair, we sat down, the chair and the administrator, and decided who would be the chairs and vice chairs of all the standing committees. And there were several topics that came up in that. And one was, it had to do with who is the most experienced person and who can run the meeting. In last Thursday's meeting, you mentioned experience in reference to Supervisor Greiner. I would assert that Supervisor Gao has much more experience in his board experience in Dane County and other organizations, including the MPO, and what he's done. It isn't to denigrate Supervisor Greiner, but it is to elevate Supervisor Gao, who also is the vice chair. In addition, as chair of infrastructure, when I have missed a meeting, vice chair actually stepped in and took over that role and did very well. He's also accounted himself very well in the Alternative Energy Committee. I'll make one other point. We have this resolution, this amendment to Resolution 5526 that Supervisor Robinson is putting forth, which seems to push us in a direction of a JDA. Last Thursday, one of the comments that came up is that if we did go into a JDA, the executive committee would have interest in that they would be looking at those are your words. So I would ask, who would be the better person to be on the executive committee? Because the chair of infrastructure is on executive. Would it be Supervisor Gao, who has spoken quite eloquently, not in necessarily opposing a JDA, but in all the information he's provided for it, or would it be Supervisor Greiner? So I believe that Supervisor Gao should be the chair of the infrastructure committee. Thank you.
Supervisor Sandulski, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just got a question in relation to, because in the past, I know I've been on public safety and we had the chair step down, and then the vice chair, basically, they moved the vice chair in position, and I believe is that been the protocol as far as the history of the board? Has the vice chair stepped in and when the chair stepped down? Because I feel like that seems like a protocol as far as, and then when the appointments, when the session begins, when the appointments of fresh appointments. That's what happened as far as our public safety when Jacobson stepped down. I was curious what the previous record is on that, if that's happened normally or if this is something different. Thank you.
I don't have the previous record in front of me, all of the previous times, but I will say that the chair and the vice chair sat down and discussed the qualifications, and it has not been the practice to put a chair as the first term individual in the chair position on a standing committee. And the recommendation from the vice chair and myself was to move forward with Supervisor Greiner. Vice Chair Boots, please.
Yeah, that was one of the consideration also, that Supervisor Gao was also the chair of the MPO. So that reported to that committee as well. So that was also taken into account. There was nothing against Supervisor Gao at all, but just being a first term and Greiner being a second term is one of the main reasons.
Any other discussion? Supervisor Drabek, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Since there's some confusion here with this and everything, I'm just wondering, maybe this should go to rules review this coming time and get talked through, so it's not done like this again. It's just a suggestion. Thank you.
It can be noted for the next Rules Review Committee to take up. Any further discussion on the motion? The motion is to approve Supervisor Greiner as the chair of the Infrastructure Committee. Is everybody ready to vote? We'll proceed. And we'll proceed. And the motion is not carried. And we'll move on. And the chair and the vice chair will get together and have a discussion about a recommendation for the committee next month. Moving on to environmental resources, amending the general code, chapter 17, battery energy storage systems, the BESS, ordinance 27-26. What is your pleasure? Motion by Supervisor Lemmer, seconded by Supervisor Shaneborn. Discussion. Any discussion? Supervisor Dickinson, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd sent an email earlier today regarding the distance. I know there was some question about 300 feet or 1,800 feet, and I did offer it up, and I don't know if it was looked into, but that's the thought process of the 300 feet being maybe too short, even though 1,800 may be too far. And one of those reasons is that within a fire, that there can be embers that can travel under light winds further than 300 feet. And so I didn't know if Ms. Skimmons had any opportunity to look at that, or anybody had any discussion about that. Thank you.
I would invite Shad Harvey up because that discussion was had, and they did look into what the maximum possible distance could be or potentially could be without being overly restrictive under the ordinance.
All righty. Yeah, we did look into some possible other alternatives as far as the setback. One of the things we did was we looked into our current ordinance and seen kind of where our ordinance was sitting as far as the furthest we have in there. And some of the uses that popped up were sawmill, composting facility, things like that, smells and noise. We do go up to a 500-foot setback. With that being said, I definitely appreciate your point about making sure the separation distance is adequate for fires. I think we would run into, and to your point with the 1,800 feet being a little bit too long and too restrictive, I fear the ember justification would be difficult to justify still the 1,800 feet, just because of the fact, if anything starts on fire, there's a potential for embers, not just battery energy storage. But with research that we did and the similar uses with similar type concerns, 500 feet was something that staff felt would be available to have as a setback from a residence. I want to be careful not to include this to things like waterways. Waterways were held to certain standards by the state, but As far as like from a residence, I think 500 feet is something we could kind of have as a middle ground that we would be able to justify.
Okay, Supervisor Sandelsky, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So what is the reasoning behind the waterways not putting a decent setback in there? Because I look at, like, you guys are worried about the manure runoff. This is gonna be far more devastating than if you have a fire or something. It's gonna cause a lot of chemical leakage and all kinds of issues in the waterways and the wetlands and the rivers, streams, lakes.
I definitely understand where you're coming from for sure. The state of Wisconsin has shoreline regulations that actually place restrictions on counties from waterways, what we can actually enforce upon. So we can't be more restrict than the state allows for waterways. And that if we wanted to look at something, it would definitely take more research to make sure it's even within our authority. But from my conversations with DNR on the topic, they felt strongly as well that if we place that in our general shoreline or place that in our general zoning ordinance, it could violate state shoreline standards. So that was the reason.
So there really is no, I mean, they could put them 50 feet from the water or whatever they want. I mean, I'm just wondering what, because I read through the thing and I didn't see no regulations as far as that.
So the general shoreline or the general zoning code that's in there is separate from the shoreline code. Our county separates them. This is the general zoning. Shoreline is chapter 22 that has the shoreline setbacks. The state of Wisconsin, whether we agree or disagree, they have a 75-foot setback to the ordinary high water mark of navigable waterways. We're not allowed to require it to be further than that. Again, whether we agree or disagree, that's essentially the state has determined that portion for us.
Is that in a state statute or where is that? Because as far as I've been looking, I couldn't find nothing as far as regulations on the best systems from PSC or from the state.
Yeah, the state of Wisconsin, it's NR 115 is what the administrative code that regulates shoreline ordinances. With that being said, they don't specifically call out battery energy storage. They don't specifically call out other uses. It's a flat structure building setback.
So there really, so we could technically put a setback further than 75 feet, because I feel like that's just looking for, that's just not gonna be.
Battery energy storage would still fall under the definition of structure for shoreline. So that was definitely the conversation I had with DNR. That being said, I mean, we're always looking for ways we can improve, so it's something we can look into, but I think it's something that we would have to be very careful with how we do, because we don't want to violate the shoreline standards as well and put ourselves at risk. But I do get the feel like the concern about having things too close to waterways for sure.
Supervisor Gao, please.
Thank you, Chairman Gibbs. I heard the staff just say something about 500 feet, but our ordinance right now says 300. Is there discussion from staff saying that 500 is reasonable, or are they still consider the 300 they'd like to see in the ordinance?
From the research that we did, staff feels that 500 feet would be reasonable if the board would like to amend it to 500 feet, but that's ultimately a board decision.
No matter what the board takes, 500 or 300 feet, all I'm looking for is after you get this done, like Chair Supervisor Ritter indicated, that anything we deal with the commercial ones, we can come back at a different time for a different distance, because commercial settings are not similar to residential settings.
Supervisor Hoppe, please.
I've been reading that the battery storages have stray voltage just like the wind turbines do. And until they can focus some attention on that, I prefer that we just do a moratorium because I don't think there's enough research done to approve this.
If I may.
Yeah, please.
One thing I want to be clear, so during our comprehensive revision, our comprehensive zoning code revision, we did already develop a battery energy storage ordinance in our Chapter 17 zoning code. So these are amendments to that ordinance. Essentially the protections that come from these amendments, if it's voted down or amended in a way, we're left with what we have currently in our ordinance, which is, it is a solid ordinance. This just provides more protections for the local community, specifically first responders and towns that essentially have to handle and work with these types of systems. That being said, like what was just mentioned, we're always looking for ways to improve our ordinances. So we are always looking for ways to better protect our communities, county-owned towns, and whatnot that fall under this Chapter 17 zoning code. So that's something, if we have an idea that's brought up in the future or whatnot, we can always bring that stuff back through the process to get our code amended. But if these amendments don't go through, we're still left with that original ordinance that just doesn't have some of the protections that this one has.
Supervisor Krebs, please.
Thank you, Chairman. My question, I guess, goes to corporate counsel. Do we have any sort of authority where we are allowed to mandate that the builders of these facilities provide the adequate firefighting equipment in the event that there is a fire? Because it's obviously a very specialized type of firefighting equipment that needs to be provided here. Now, I understand that they have to provide training. Correct me if I'm wrong. They do not have to provide the equipment correctly, correct?
They also have to provide the equipment.
And what kind of equipment is that specifically?
I think it would likely depend on the system itself, but they have to provide the adequate PPE and whatnot for the first responders to
Personal
respond to
protective equipment and fire suppression is not the same thing, though. I'm not asking what sort of equipment are we providing the firefighters. What are we doing to provide them the correct equipment to put these fires out in the event that they do start? And what do we have as a county where we can enact some sort of, I guess, an ordinance, for lack of a better term, or some sort of rule? Because I have genuine concern over this, that this could potentially get one of our first responders seriously hurt or killed if this is not done correctly.
Yeah, so this essentially, I just threw it up on the screen. It might be a little bit difficult to see here just because of the small, but it does say the system owner shall be responsible for replacing any specialized, one above that, my apologies. So they are responsible for adequately training, like you had mentioned, and equipped to respond to these emergencies. So the equipment that they would need to respond to those and handle those is something that the system owner is responsible for giving them. I can't say for certain, depending on the system, if one thing's required or one thing's not. They do have to do a bunch of emergency planning with those first responders, and during that process is when they'd figure out what equipment they would need. But the system owner is responsible for giving them that equipment and then replacing it at the end of service life of that equipment.
So if Stratford's fire chief comes in tonight to that company and says, we need this equipment to successfully fight these types of fires, they are required then to provide that?
I think it would depend on,
Within reason.
within reason, they're required to provide them with the equipment necessary to handle emergencies on that site.
Thank you.
Yes, that is one of the amendments that is not currently in the ordinance but is proposed.
Supervisor Sandalski, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I've read a couple of different ordinances from what townships, a couple of townships, Town of Day, and then I read one from Clark County. There's one from Jefferson County I read, and I feel like our wording is not, it's missing a lot of stuff in the ordinance as far as protections and decommissions, overall protections. I mean, having strong wording and liability risks so they cover if they don't abide by our ordinance, then, and like your mapping and stuff, getting that kind of stuff, like we do through with all the zoning stuff, if we get it, anything they want to do should be approved, should come back through the board as far as like mapping and different things, because we always do that with our zoning code as far as ERC and all that stuff, and that's got to go through the full board. I don't see why we couldn't do a lot of that stuff. That's why I'm kind of asking, I want to ask to actually make a motion to send this back to ERC and see if we can tighten up a lot of stuff on this, because I feel like it still needs a lot of work, because the size of these things is approximately, it's about the size of a 53-foot semi-trailer filled with lithium ion, like basically a cell phone. So you pack them in there and that's what you got. I mean, this is highly dangerous stuff, and if we don't put in tight enough regulations, it's gonna cause a lot of damage to the environment and to people's health and a lot of things. So I think that's my motion. So to send it back to ERC committee to try to tighten this up a little better.
So the motion is to refer back to committee, but not very specific in the items that you want addressed by the committee. I would request that you at least provide some direction as to what, and I would first caution the board, again, we can always address the additional concerns. If we were to pass this, it makes our code better at the present, and we can always amend it in the future to add to it. Again, we relied on staff to go out and provide us the best information that they have from other ordinances that are around the state. And so, again, I would caution that if we don't pass this, we have less protection than we would if we pass this and then add the additional protections, if there is additional protections that the committee that specific supervisor wants addressed. So is there a second to the motion to refer back to committee? Second by Supervisor Hoppe to refer back to committee. Just a second, I need the clerk to make. All right, so now we'll be on discussion on the motion to refer. And again, if you were in the queue prior to the motion being seconded to refer, I would ask that you please sign up as requested to speak. Next, we have Supervisor Straub.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess my comment would kind of align with the motion to bring it back to committee for further review. My question would be, since I heard somewhere in the conversation that the DNR says it's just another structure, so being close to water, or whatever their rules say, is there anything taken into consideration for attractive nuisance in this ordinance? Which would justify my reason for wanting it go back to committee if there was no consideration over attractive nuisance with these battery energy storage systems.
I guess as far as a nuisance aspect, could you explain a little bit more what you're thinking?
Well, in construction, if you're building an apartment building like the one by Lake Wausau, you have to have a fence because the water is a natural attraction to young children and adults even. So is there any provisions in any of the laws for attractive nuisance?
So specifically stated that way, no, it's not stated as a nuisance. I will say that this is a conditional use permit for commercial systems, which goes in front of the Board of Adjustments. The Board of Adjustments is a quasi-judicial board that essentially takes public input, and they can address concerns like you just brought up, like visual repair. If they get concerns that they feel screening is required, the Board of Adjustment can put screening requirements onto these systems. So in a sense, there is a pathway right now to gather the concerns of the local community, and they can provide that input during the public hearing process. And then it's the Board of Adjustment's jobs to take those concerns to put reasonable conditions on the permit for. So screening would be something that could be done, yep.
And as a follow-up, if I may, Chair.
Go ahead, please.
Yeah, I would just say that that should be something that should be pretty solidly set in ordinance instead of at the decision of a Board of Adjustments. Thank you.
Supervisor Boots, Vice Chair Boots, please.
Yeah, just like a quick clarification. So for most part with firefighting, per Supervisor Krems, so NFPA covers most of that stuff. 70 covers arc flash, electrical circuits, things like that. NFP 855 would be your best systems for energy systems, and it spells out exactly how they have to protect that building, protect life safety. All of that is spelled out in NFPA 855. So.
Supervisor Krebs, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Just touching base again on the firefighting perspective of it. If this does go back to ERC, I would ask that we seriously consider all wind turbines and battery energy storage system facilities be mandated to have some type of internal fire suppression system, whether that be a dry chem or halon. Quite frankly, if we have fire inspectors going all over this county mandating that our fast food joints have this, I just can't see why we wouldn't mandate that for something with a significantly higher chance of severe injuries or death from that.
Supervisor Lemmer, please.
Thank you, Chair Gibbs, and I would just like to strongly recommend that we vote this down so we can get the protections that are currently in the ordinance active before we wind up having somebody put up a structure like this and there is no requirement for fire training or anything. I will personally lobby to get this put back on the ERC agenda so that we can come in and do the necessary adjustments that are being asked, especially if you email me with your specifics. Thank you.
Supervisor Ritter, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to kind of echo Supervisor Lemmer. I'm trying to wrap my head around this, so I'm going to just kind of try to explain it in simple terms. We have an ordinance in place for Chapter 17 dealing with battery energy systems. The ordinance presented, the amendment today is making it better. If we send it back to ERC, it's going to take longer to make it better. But we could make it better today and then make adjustments in the future. So a vote today would strengthen our ordinances to protect the people of Marathon County. Sending it back to ERC, we can't strengthen it until it goes through committee again. Additionally, Director Miskimmons gave everybody on this board the opportunity to view what was presented and to email staff with their recommendations on how to make it better. I believe that could have happened instead of this circle of discussion tonight. So I will agree with Supervisor Lemmer. Let's vote for this amendment tonight. If you have further concerns on how to make it better, then we can bring that to ERC and further strengthen it another step. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Vice Chair Boots.
Just to clarify, NFPA is you have to do it. There's no, you have to. It's national code. So it's in place. It's the same as a restaurant or anything else. You have to have certain places, things in effect when they build this, and they have to maintain them when they come through.
Any further discussion? The motion is to refer back to committee. Is everybody clear on the motion? All right, we'll proceed to vote. And we'll proceed. And the motion is failed. And so we're back to the motion to approve the amending General Code 17 Battery Energy Storage Systems Ordinance 27-26 as presented. Supervisor Dickinson, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Based upon the conversation, what Chad had talked about here, I'd like to make the amendment for the 500 feet for residences. Thank you.
All right. There's a motion to amend the setback from 300 feet in the ordinance to 500 foot in the ordinance. Is there a second? Seconded by Supervisor, please press the,
I don't have it up yet.
just a second. Motion by Supervisor Dickinson, seconded by Supervisor Jensen to change the setback requirement from residential structures from 300 feet to 500 feet. Any discussion on that amendment? Supervisor Sandalski, please.
So you said just residential, as I would like to make an amendment to the amendment to make it any public buildings, outbuildings, anything that's like barns, as far as outbuildings, public buildings, and residents. Could I add that amendment to that amendment?
The amendment is in order, correct? Okay, amendment to the amendment is in order. But I'll wait till the clerk has the amendment to the amendment included. But I would ask.
Just say building.
Building or dwelling? Is that cover, Supervisor, building or dwelling, does that cover your intent?
Yeah, it's any structures, public or private structures and dwellings.
Building or dwelling, okay.
Thank you.
All right, is there a second? Okay, just a second, please. Okay. Got a motion. Seconded by Supervisor Ensign. Motion by Supervisor Sandalski and seconded by Supervisor Ensign. Before we proceed, I'd ask staff to weigh in as to whether or not they have any feeling as to whether or not that's over restrictive in the code that might be deemed potentially illegal.
Do you want to take this or do you want me to?
I guess I can take this. I don't right offhand feel that that's going to be an issue. And again, these are conditional use permits. So all that will have to be taken into account when the permit is reviewed by the Board of Adjustment. So like I say, it just came up. I don't think anybody's run a map and, laid out 500 feet from every building, but I don't see that being a problem, at least from a rational perspective.
Okay. Supervisor Sandulski next. Okay. Supervisor Lemmer, please.
Thank you, Chair. I think this is for staff. Can you tell me precisely where in the ordinance this will fit? Because when I'm looking at the original 300 feet, it is under this subheading of commercial. So I'm just a little confused about where this will be placed in the ordinance.
So the amendment would essentially replace this line right here.
Can you name it? My eyes,
Yep,
pushing.
I'll blow it up a little bit
I
here.
am.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Please go ahead. Please.
The one thing that I would, I guess, make clear on this is, and sorry, if you mentioned it, I apologize. I think it's still important to keep the language if it's owned by the owner of the BES, because they may have buildings or things that they need to construct as part of this. And just for clarity, if it's owned by the system owner, they would be allowed to be closer than that distance. That would be my comment.
Okay, Supervisor Hoppe, please.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to clarify one item about this. So there are the battery storages that are standalone, and there are some that are connected to a turbine project. Okay. The standalone ones are not controlled by the PSC, correct?
Correct.
So would the ordinance that we come up with, is that going to pertain to all of them? The standalone and the connected?
Please, Shad, please.
It would only pertain to the standalone, especially the systems that are over 100 megawatts. If they have a battery energy storage that's tied to their project, and they're going for that public certificate of public convenience and necessity, this would not apply.
Thank you.
Supervisor Shaneborn, please.
Thank you, Chair Gibbs. Hey, the only question I got is basically what Chris said, to 500 feet. If you end up taking 10 53-foot trailers and you stack them in line or whatever, I mean, that's quite a bit of room. I'm not saying good or bad, but I'm just saying, I mean, that's a pretty long ways. I mean, wherever this is going to be placed on property for these people, are they going to have the room for this, this battery storage? I mean, it's a lot of, I mean, we're at 200 feet, then 300 feet, now 500 feet. I'm just kind of looking for some clarifying that, it's, I think we just, like even like what Supervisor Ritter said or whatever, we can always bring this back and then get this all put into updating on with the ERC and make these corrections. Thank you.
Supervisor Dickinson, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Go
I
ahead,
didn't-
please.
Yeah, just to be clear again, this only affects county-owned towns. So towns that have their own zoning or no zoning, this ordinance doesn't apply there. Yeah.
I think, and just to also be clear, and I think it was illustrated, if a battery energy storage system is in conjunction with a renewable energy system, wind or solar, that is over 100 megawatts, that project would be going through the PSC, and this ordinance would not apply to those projects. The PSC has their own set of guidelines as to what they use when they look at these type projects. Supervisor Dickinson, please.
Thank you, Chair. So just to kind of direct to that point, my recommendation was to see if there was an extension of the 300, and the 500 came from CPZ, so that's why I accepted that 500.
Any further discussion? Any further discussion? The amendment now is to amend the amendment to include all buildings and not just dwellings. Is everybody clear on the amendment, to the amendment? Is everybody clear on what you're voting on? You're voting on the amendment to the amendment to include all other buildings, not just dwellings. All right, let's proceed to vote. Could Supervisor Ensight and Supervisor Conway, please. Super Conway is no.
He dropped.
Okay, you dropped at the same time that the vote was approved, so it didn't get recorded, but we will make sure that the record will reflect Supervisor Conway was a no. The motion amendment to the amendment does pass, and so now we are back to the amendment as amended to increase the setback to 500 feet for all residential and other buildings. Again, the amendment is to increase the setback from 300 foot to 500 foot for all structures, including residential. Is everybody clear? Any further discussion? Supervisor Lemmer, please.
Thank you, Chair Gibbs. I'm inclined to vote no on this only because I think once we clean up at the original, or if we vote in the original, we can come back and clean this up. I have concerns just because I don't think I understand battery energy storage enough. So my question is if I vote no, does that shoot the whole thing down, or is that just this amendment?
Just the amendment at this point. We're voting only on the amendment after amended.
Okay, thank
So
you.
the amendment now would be, we're just voting on the amendment to increase it from 300 to 500. It is not on the original motion. Is everybody clear? Any further discussion? All right, we'll proceed to vote. And we'll proceed. And the motion is carried, but is not unanimous. Now, to the ordinance 27-26, as amended, the amendment increased the setback to 500 feet for residents and other buildings. Any further discussion? Supervisor Drabek, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't know how I got on there.
Okay.
I didn't touch anything. I'm
Okay.
innocent.
I will remove you.
Okay, thank you.
Supervisor Hoppe, please. You also?
I didn't do anything either.
It's,
I was reaching over,
It's-
touching her button here.
the system has a mind of its own right now, so I apologize. I don't know what it's doing. Give me just a moment. Voted on this. I don't know why it's wanting another.
Do you have a record of that vote? All right, any further discussion on ordinance 27-26 as amended? Again, the amendment that has been approved by the board is to increase the setback to 500 feet and to include all residential and other buildings. Any further discussion on that ordinance? All right, seeing none, let's proceed to vote. And we'll proceed. And the motion is carried, but is not unanimous. Moving on to amending the General Code, Chapter 17, and placing a moratorium on data centers. Ordinance 28-26. Motion by Supervisor Draybeck and seconded by Supervisor Conway. Any discussion on the motion? Again, we do not have in our ordinance, Chapter 17, anything about data centers, and this will allow staff time to develop our ordinance and bring back a ordinance to this board for discussion. It allows for up to 12 months of a moratorium on data centers. Any additional discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. And we'll proceed. And the motion is carried, but is not unanimous. Moving on to item 6D16, amending the General Code, Chapter 17, Large Energy Generating Facilities, Ordinance 29-26. Motion by Supervisor Coyle, is it seconded by Supervisor Ritter? Supervisor Lemmer, please.
Thanks again, Chair Gibbs. You know, at the ERC, I was the lone no vote on this, and I continue to have concerns about the way it's written. If you take a look at pages 27 and 28 in the packet to zoom in on section 3 and 4 of this ordinance, it looks like staff is going to take a pretty big burden of a review that in the meeting, they admitted they don't necessarily have all of the expertise to go through these reports. And if you especially take a look on page 28, the language in sub 1, 2, and 3, there are no values to measure whether or not the design location is in the best interest of, say, public health. There's nothing objective that can be used for that. If you look at number 2, undue adverse impact, what does that mean? And if you look at number 3, unreasonably interfere, I feel like we should have something very objective in here that's measurable, that is not going to possibly pit staff against certain supervisors. So I would be hopeful that we can send this back and reword that section so that there's something objective and measurable in there. And so before I make a motion, I would appreciate maybe hearing from staff on that.
Shad, if you want to address that, or Lori, whichever. Lori?
I'll kick it off while Lori's walking up. Give her some time to think. Just to ground everyone as to how we got here. This is my analogy. Staff received a homework assignment. That homework assignment was to find ways, innovative ways, for the board to be more engaged, because again, this is an area, as Shad has said, and Lori have said, and others have told you, that the PSC preempts. We have very little opportunity for engagement. Your homework assignment was find an opportunity to maximize engagement. This is the result of the homework assignment, which is looking at, again, state statute 196.491 and pulling all of the things that Supervisor Lemmer just referenced that are the areas where a county can provide comment to the PSC. So that was the homework assignment. That's what we did. It is entirely the board's prerogative whether or not you want to ultimately go down the rabbit hole of whether there's value with that homework assignment. But that's what we did. As far as we know, and we worked with, it was our internal team and an external, we sought outside counsel. We're the only
county in the state of Wisconsin that no county has this. We're the only one that we realize, that we're aware of right now that is talking about it. So I hope that has provided Lori some additional time to think.
Rebecca's on the line too.
Oh, and outside counsel, Rebecca Roker from Atolis, if she would like to weigh in.
Good evening, everyone. I wasn't expecting to speak on this item, but I'm happy to the extent I can answer questions. Lindsay, you are correct that Marathon County is the first county, at least that I'm aware of, and I believe Andy is aware of, that has taken into consideration an ordinance such as this. As was just stated correctly, a county's ability to regulate large-scale solar facilities is very restricted under state statutes. The ordinance you have in front of you is an attempt to trigger an obligation by the developer and the PSC to engage the county at an early stage, which is the submission of the engineering plans. Now, under the statute, the engineering plans is kind of it's really the first step prior to the actual formal application for the CPCN. So we felt that utilizing that submission of the engineering plans was a good trigger for the county to be notified of this upcoming CPCN application. The other reason we used the engineering plan as the triggering point is because it is not specifically, or it's not as specifically addressed within Chapter 196 with respect to the preemption issue. So again, what is in front of you is a new and unique novel opportunity for a county to have greater input in a project at the very earliest stages that are required by the statutes, i.e. submission of the engineering plan. And I'm happy to answer any other questions that you may have regarding the ordinance, the extent I'm able.
Lori, want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just reiterate what they've already said. I think if this ordinance passes, we see it as something that provides a tool to allow us to coordinate and collaborate and bring information forward, hopefully earlier in the process. I think in terms of implementation, what it's going to look like, we're not going to know until we get an engineering plan. We have looked at some other engineering plans that have been submitted to the PSC process to try and understand. I think what we would be able to provide back to the board is basically an outline of things that we do consider that are possible concerns, considerations, and things while the board determines for any specific project what path they may want to pursue for that project, be it intervention, a joint developer agreement, any other kind of path they want to pursue. But we would try and take that report and distill it down to identify areas that they may want to consider while they're determining their path for a specific project. Yeah, so we did put an engineering plan in the packet on Thursday that we found. It is not for any project in Marathon County. I don't know if it was Badger Hollow, I can't remember. The ones we've seen are anywhere from 11 to 25 pages is what we've seen thus far. So they aren't lengthy reports.
So then just as a follow-up, is the language in here something that gives you the willies with, I mean, I just think about the project we're talking about later in the evening. Are you prepared to answer those 3 questions for that project? I know you haven't necessarily seen an engineering plan, but I just wonder if the language should be, I have no problem with having a report given to us early so we can engage early. I think that's valuable. I just worry about the language that's in here. It seems like you'll be asked to comment on things that are murky.
I think I can take this, and I'm probably going to give you an answer that perhaps you won't appreciate. It's not going to be staff that are answering those questions. It's the board. when it says the county may issue written findings, the county board is the one that is ultimately going to be making the determination that Lori referenced of whether to intervene and what do you want to say. Or whether you want a joint development agreement and what are you going to say, or whether you don't want either of those things. So we'll do our best to help, but I totally appreciate the point. I mean, there have been a lot of concerns represented with these projects generally, and we saw that through the Alternative Energy Local Impact Advisory Committee and the report that was generated. The ultimate task of distilling that down and determining what, if any, action you want to take pursuant to 196-491 is, from my perspective, ultimately a decision of the board.
Supervisor Sandalski, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. After hearing everything we have from the Alternative Energy Committee and all the residents, this 1.5 page ordinance, I don't feel like it addresses it real, and it seems like a very, very weak ordinance. So this is an excellent reason why we should send this back to ERC and put in consideration to place a moratorium so we can make this ordinance more robust. And like Lori was saying, that some of these towns or other counties had 11, 12 page ordinances. Unless I missed something, I only found a page and a half, and it doesn't seem like it covers a lot.
I was referring to the engineering plan that we would be reviewing, not our ordinance. So for that 11 to 25 pages.
Oh, okay, because it seems awful short, so I'd like to make a motion to send this back to ERC and actually consider possibly doing a moratorium so we have more time to do some research on this. Thank you.
All right, there's a motion to return to ERC, the ordinance 28-26, excuse me, 29-26. Is there a second? Is there a second? Supervisor Endres with a second. Okay. Now on the discussion on the motion to refer back to committee to consider a moratorium. Discussion. Supervisor Gao?
Thank you, Chairman Gibbs. It's kind of ironic. We've had a lot of discussions on this issue with the Hub City. When I was at the ERC committee meeting, I looked at this very carefully. What this does, and this is something brand new for Marathon County, but it's something that also is taken into consideration. We have had Alliant give a lot of information to us for the specific case. Now let's take a look at the individual that's putting the project together in Easton, which is a solar farm. We have not only heard about it from a few constituents and also the representatives from that area. The developer hasn't brought anything to us. The developer hasn't brought anything to development. This ordinance or this chapter makes it to the point when an ERC is submitted and the engineering plan, the developer has to provide the information to Marathon County. I see this as a very good and very positive piece. Now, someone made a motion to refer to put a moratorium in it. We've heard many things about a moratorium, and it's been very much discussed last meeting. A moratorium is got to have a limit in nature. So if you just throw the word moratorium out there, you're not describing what type of moratorium you're talking about. So as the motion on the floor, the amendment, really does not clearly describe what a moratorium you're looking for and what nature. If you just put a moratorium out there, we've learned already that a plain moratorium does not get approved or processed to the public, PSC. Moratoriums and very vague moratoriums are presented to the PSC, and they don't even look at them. So for this specific case, I'm going to vote no on the amendment.
Any further discussion? Any further discussion? The motion is to refer back the ordinance 0-29-26 and for ERC to consider placing a moratorium on large energy generating facilities. Is everybody clear on the motion? All right, we'll proceed to vote. And we'll proceed. And the motion is defeated. And now we're back to the motion as to approve large energy generating generating facilities ordinance amendments 29, ordinance 29-26. Supervisor Dickinson, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I thought there was, but maybe there's not as I review it. Is there anything in the ordinance that says we would also contact the town and share with them the information that we're submitting and the plan?
I don't believe there's anything specifically in there that says that, but I know that's something we'd be willing to do for sure.
Okay, I'd like to offer that as an amendment then.
Where specifically, Supervisor, would you like that inserted into the ordinance? I think by practice, it has always been our practice to share information with our county zone towns in projects that we have that are before the county, but it's clearly the prerogative of the motion to include it somewhere in the.
Sure, I can speak to that. There can be an item 8 in section .03 under the county review and coordination, that all information pertinent to that decision information would be shared with the town that's affected.
That works.
Was it section point?
Number 8.
That's 17.4045.03. I guess parent 8 would be to inform
No, that's
all affected municipalities or.
No, that's the stuff we have to be provided apparently.
What if it
that's-
was added to the review process, county review process at the end of it?
So I think it would have to go into .04 in the county review process. The others where they're providing us information.
Respectfully, I think perhaps a good spot is upon receipt of the engineering plan and the information set forth in section 17.4045.03, comma, the county shall provide same information, said information to the town, another comma, and then just continue, and I think we hit the mark.
And I just want to, before I go forward fully with that amendment, this applies to towns that are county zoned. However, towns that are near that are not county zoned potentially are affected, correct?
Could be. In this
So-
Hub City project, there's 4 towns that are county zoned, 1 that has town zoning and 1 that is unzoned, correct?
So we could share, I think we should be sharing that information with all the affected towns as well, which still gets us outside of the rules of county zone towns, correct? Because I know does that make sense? It's just within the sharing of information with the affected. It doesn't bind them in any way to.
I think we understand, I think that is a good place to put it. I think in practice, apologies for the side conversation, but I don't see a downside of sharing it with every town in the entire county. Not just I think to your point, there's the impacted towns that have a portion of a project perhaps within their boundaries. That isn't to say that a town adjoining
Neighboring
over
or adjacent.
wouldn't benefit from that information
Well, I'd
as well.
accept your amendment to my amendment. Thank you.
I think your amendment didn't specify. We could just say to transmit to all towns.
your amendment hasn't got a second, so you can still add to your amendment. How is that? To include all towns, shared with all towns.
Municipalities.
Oh, I think it would be towns.
Lance is saying municipalities.
Did you have a second yet?
No.
Not yet.
Perfect. What we heard was all municipalities in the county. Okay.
Is that agreeable with the motioner? All right. And now I would request a second. Please don't push the buttons yet.
Okay. Stop, please.
Don't push the buttons, please, because you're screwing up the system.
Let me do it.
Discussion, that's why.
I have to be a discussion to put in a motion.
Now we've got a second. Seconded by Supervisor Arstead. Supervisor Rosenberg, please.
Thank you. I was pushing my button to say exactly, almost exactly, what Supervisor Dickinson was saying. I do think we can't go wrong with spreading the news further. Maybe, I'm not going to tell the county administration how to do their job, but maybe a communications plan around these kinds of things would be a great idea. I think one of the biggest problems we've had with this is that people think we're not being good neighbors. And I think this is a good step in that direction. So thank you for this amendment.
Any further discussion on the amendment? Any further discussion on the amendment? The amendment simply requires that upon receipt of the information, we will share that information with all municipalities in Marathon County. Is everybody clear on the motion? All right, we'll proceed to vote. We got Supervisor Zhang and Supervisor Hapa. We have all in. Thank you. We'll proceed. And the motion is carried and is unanimous. Now, back to the original resolution amending General Code, Chapter 17, Large Energy Generating Facilities, Ordinance 29-26, as amended. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? All right, Supervisor Gao, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So if I understand this right, then what's coming forward with the CPCN would have to be provided to the Public Service Commission, kicking off or starting the us looking at the project to be involved. And in the CPCN, that's where the engineering plan comes through. Is that correct?
Ask staff to clarify.
The engineering plan is a step in the CPCN process. It's not, it's prior to them actually applying for the CPCN.
The engineering plan is?
Correct.
How much, then I'd like to know how much farther than a CPCN.
So there's 60 days, they have to submit it to the PSC, 60 days prior to application. But, you know, there's nothing that says they couldn't go longer than that. That's just a minimum from PSC.
The 60 days is from their first notification?
The 60 days is from when they have to submit. So for example, Hub City had to do a pre-application notice 180 days prior to their application with the Public Service Commission. They'll still have to do an engineering plan 60 days prior to completing or submitting their application to the PSC.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Any further discussion? All right, seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. And the motion is carried, but is not unanimous. Moving on, item number D17, at the request of Supervisor Ritter, item D17 has been pulled and was not even included in the packet. Moving on to resolutions from the Infrastructure Committee and Human Resources, Finance and Property Committee, item E18, authorizing staff to proceed with Phase 3 construction of the proposed new highway facility, Resolution 49-26. Motion by Supervisor Robinson, seconded by Supervisor Gao. Supervisor Lemmer, please.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify something that was discussed at the last, what meeting would it have been? Probably the HRFP meeting on the 12th of August. And so this would be maybe for our Director Holman. But we had talked about solar, and you had mentioned that solar may not be possible because of the coal plant having coal dust there. But you also said there would be a business plan for the geothermal that you were hoping to have presented. And then Chair Robinson had asked if there was analysis done on solar, and I think I sidetracked the conversation. So I just wanted to go back to that conversation and said, yeah, I really would like to see kind of a parallel business plan with that, that solar. Especially in light of how it could offset the costs of some of the other electrical at the facility with the federal direct pay reimbursement, if that even still applies. And then I guess I'm wondering where that business plan for the geothermal was going to be presented so I could get that on my calendar. And then I'm also wondering, second compound question, apologies, Mr. Leonard. Is it possible to get a report on the air quality over there, given that there's a coal dust? You know, EPA or DNR, I don't know who's got the jurisdiction on that, but I just wonder if there are issues for employee health. If there are concerns about coal dust on a solar array increasing operational costs, what is happening with the air quality over there?
I'll answer the second question first. The coal dust was one factor in terms of like, if you put in solar somewhere, what are some of the factors that affect it when you compare it to the benefits of a geothermal system? So like when we're choosing what has the greater life cycle and operational costs over time, that's one of the factors that went into it. In terms of the safety of the air within a building, we've already designed the HVAC to have finer particulate filters in it so that if there's any day where there happens to be a windy day and some dust is blowing over, that's handled on the inside. So there, we've mitigated that from a particulate point of view in the design. I don't know if I'd have to look to see if somebody's done some sort of air study there. My sense would be that there wasn't one. Maybe there was years ago, but I think most of the time when you have particulate matter, sometimes people are required to wet down the material. You see that a lot in sand mines as well. If there's a chance it is going to aerosolize and become problematic for human health, they wet that down. That doesn't mean that it doesn't, maybe on a winter day where the weather is just right, blow over a certain facility. But I think that I can look into that to see, but I don't know right now. But design-wise, because it's there, and I know that there's talk of decommissioning from coal and switching to natural gas at some point in the near future, and that's been in flux. I mean, I think long-term, they'll still move in that direction. So that issue would be not long-term based on when they actually make the switch. And then for the business planning, a lot of I do have information in terms of, the reduction in use. So the thing with geothermal is you're reducing the overall use, and with that being a significant portion of the operational cost, you're saving on electricity and gas therms both, whereas the solar is just producing electric and producing it during the seasons where it's more sunny. So we've talked to Eau Claire County where they have solar on their highway shop, and we looked at their real world data to say, okay, where are you benefiting? And you can see that their costs do go up in the winter. Some of that's probably from heating. And their actual non-solar subsidized sort of costs. They're paying more dollars versus the solar in the winter because there's less sun and because there's more energy use. So the geothermal wins on that too, because you're reducing, and compared to traditional systems, the geothermal is going to use 75% less energy in the winter months and 43% less in the summer months. And that summer number is going to go down for the same reason. The photovoltaic is going to compete better when it's sunnier. So a lot of that's based on design. There are sort of generalized savings, So for instance, if you had a 100 kW PV system, the assumption would be you'd save somewhere between 11,000 and 17,000 per year on electricity. With the geothermal unit, there's an assumption for a 30-ton geothermal unit to save between 16 and 25. So that's a 30-ton assumption. The system we're putting in is 200 tons. So when you run the numbers and you hold them up, it's not that you say, well, we're not going to ever do PV. That could be done down the road. Whereas the geothermal, you have to decide whether or not to do it now because it ties into the HVAC design and has to go in before the building is built. But when you hold up objectively, the data in terms of, again, life cycle costs, life cycle replacement, operational savings, the geothermal won out. And so that's what we led with and moved forward with. In terms of a business plan, if there's more specific information you're looking for, I know that Troy, he's the project lead for the project, and the lead architect, Ned, they're both on WebEx. So if there are gaps to fill, they might be able to chime in.
Are they available?
I'm available.
Go ahead, please. Go ahead.
So I thought Chris did an excellent job summarizing. We've had lots of conversations with the design team and with the contractor to basically put together reasoning on how we steered towards this geothermal design. And the fact of the matter is that the county and the taxpayers can spend less money on energy if we're using the geothermal system to offset what would normally be an electrical load and a gas load. In simple terms, the geothermal system is using the earth as a radiator, and this building can use the earth to help cool and heat the building in subsequent offset seasons. And there's lots of data and technology that I could probably spit at you and bore you to death. But, through this evaluation process, the ducks really aligned for this building type. and how we plan on heating and cooling not only the office area, but the maintenance area to lean towards the geothermal system.
Okay, Supervisor Krebs, please.
Thank you, Chairman Gibbs. I will be voting no on this, and I'd like to make a brief statement to my fellow supervisors regarding that. In the April election, Village of Weston residents voted against a referendum for $600,000 per year to increase firefighter staffing to a level still far below what is recommended by the National Fire Protection Administration. That referendum failed with almost 60% of the vote being against it. A similar referendum in the city of Wausau barely passed on a 51 to 49% vote. April's election also saw 3 new Village of Weston board members be elected and 2 incumbents were voted out. Weston taxpayers made it clear that excessive spending would not be tolerated. There is current frustration in the village over costs of a $7 million police department that I believe is absolutely needed, and we still struggle in the village to accept the $14 million price tag associated with the new village hall and DPW garage built there a few years ago. For those of you paying attention to City of Wausau politics, you are aware that discussions of a new central fire station could potentially cost $28 million, and the taxpayers in Wausau seem overall very frustrated about that. When you add the estimated cost of those 3 buildings combined, you still do not meet the amount of money we are looking to spend on a single highway garage. A fire department headquarters, a village hall, a police department, and a DPW facility all have a lesser price combined than the highway garage proposal. This should throw up some significant red flags and a lot more discussion here about how expensive this highway garage project is getting. When I look at the DPW garage in Weston that cost our village $14 million, I truly struggle to see what could possibly make a county highway garage cost 4 times as much money. I ask all my fellow supervisors here tonight to ask yourself one simple question. If we were to create an advisory referendum at a future voting date requesting permission to borrow $25 million or to move funds from the healthcare center to offset an additional $25 million in funds for this garage, in addition to spending the $30 million we have set aside for a new highway garage, what do you think the results of that referendum would be? As I think it is a safe bet that a referendum countywide would fail by a large margin, and as such, I believe voting in favor of spending this much money on a new highway garage absolutely goes against our constituents' wishes for how we spend their tax dollars. Please let there be no mistake. I firmly believe that we need to provide the highway department with a new facility. They have been in their current facility on West Street for over 100 years, and I cannot thank them enough for providing their top-tier service to all of us out of that facility for as long as they have. However, putting forth a facility that could cost almost $60 million when it is done is highly irresponsible, and I cannot support that type of spending unless we are willing to receive approval from the county taxpayers via a referendum. I can't say with certainty that our constituents will want us spending the $30 million that we have set aside for a highway garage, but I do think this is a fair compromise. I can go to the residents of the Village of Weston and explain this project to them with confidence and my full support. I just cannot do that with a facility potentially pushing $60 million. A $30 million facility will most certainly be a more stripped down version from what is currently being planned. I know very well that spending only $30 million now may very well require us to spend more in 5 to 10 years to provide additional assets to that highway garage. But I think it's only fair that we make every attempt to first provide the same level of service currently given at a facility that only uses $30 million in funds we have already set aside. Thank you all for your consideration.
Supervisor Straub, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My concern kind of piggybacks off of Supervisor Lemmer with the health concerns of the drift, coal dust drift. I think I had this conversation with Administrator Leonard. I know from a reliable source who actually was a supervisor in the 70s from that plant. There were, WPS had been paying the residential residents that the county bought those residents from to make room for this garage facility. They were paying them to do cleanup of their residential houses. Am I correct on that? Has anybody ever heard anything about that? I live off of Highway 51 and I travel it every day. And in the winter, you can see the snow is black. Not as black as it used to be like in Rothschild from the mill, but it's black. And there's going to be coal dust drifting across that road and out to the garage facility. And you'll be inhaling it. It'll be settling on your vehicles. It'll be settling everywhere. I do know that WPS had been paying the residents, those 4 houses, annually a fee to do cleanup of their property. I don't know if you knew that, but I can't verify, I can't substantiate it, but I'm just telling you that's what I know. So what is WPS going to do about preventing coal dust drift onto the new garage facility and safeguard the employees from inhaling potentially hazardous dust? Has that been something that has been in the plans for this facility?
I'm not aware of a meeting with WPS about coal dust or any meeting really outside of the land transactions. I mean, we are addressing, like I said, with the filtration into the facility, but I think long-term, which means based on what I've read, within the next, they were going to do a lot sooner switching to natural gas. Like coal is not going to be around much longer. So as they switch over to natural gas for all kinds of different reasons, that issue would go away. I can't say exactly when they're going to do it because it's kind of switching based on just the general environment. But I think the last I was seeing, it was like early 2030s they were considering switching over. So yes, in the interim period you'd have some issues. We're aware of having to mitigate it by putting the filters inside the building. And we've had discussions as well about, coatings on the building and things like that. And the vehicles would be parked inside. So really you're focused on the envelope of the building itself.
Yeah, I thank you. But again, the snow is black over there. And that's the evidence that you're getting coal dust drift across the old 51 onto that property. And it was never going to be, WPS was never going to allow for any residential housing in that plat of land because of that reason. They didn't want to have to worry about health concerns. As a member of the Public Safety Committee for Marathon County, that is a concern of mine, how we can safeguard these employees in a facility that's going to be subject to coal dust drift. And again, with the geothermal building, like Supervisor Crumbs has mentioned, when I was on the county board from 22 to 24, I remember when this highway facility was going to be maybe going into the Statine. And at that time, I heard numbers floating around at $92 million. Here we went from 50 to 55. And I don't think it's going to stop at 55. I think it's going to keep going up to 60, then 65. That's how these projects go. So geothermal facilities don't seem like a necessary part of a county highway garage building.
Well, the argument for geothermal is on life cycle and operational costs. So your reduction in annual energy usage makes your operational costs go down. There will be a slight increase in the operational costs in general because you're moving from West Street to a larger facility. But you offset that quite a bit with those percentages I was mentioning earlier, with 43% less energy in the summer and 75% less in the winter. I don't know if Statine was a location where, a previous iteration of this idea of a facility included multiple departments, not just highway. So that might be one reason why the number was bigger then. Similarly, as you see in the resolution, if this were to go forward, that what you would get next before anything would be starting would be a guaranteed maximum price showing you this is the exact cost. It doesn't go up from there. Yeah. So you would have some assurances if it were to go forward that you know what you're getting. It's not going to escalate.
If I may finish up, Mr. Chair.
Pardon me?
Can I finish up with just to follow up?
One last question.
Thank you. The concern was the coal dust primary, and then secondarily, to piggyback on Supervisor Lemmer, the geothermal, I don't think is a necessary part of that garage facility, and we can always do that. I mean, WPS is right there, and they own land. Why don't they experiment with geothermal? We don't really need to do that. We got a power plant right there. We'll just stick with the norm for now to keep our costs down like we should. We got to be responsible to our taxpayers. That's my position.
Administrator Leonard, please.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just was going to echo what Chris referenced with, just to talk about process. The resolution before you today essentially provides for staff to go out and release those bids, release the bid package, so that we would then gather the information. And I think everyone in the room really is interested in, hey, what's the thing going to cost? Because right now, we don't have that guaranteed maximum price that you get through that bid issuance. That does not mean a shovel goes in the ground to build it without further action and approval by the board. With respect to the other thing it does, again, it does two things. Calls for staff to not go out and borrow. This doesn't authorize bonding. It essentially is approving the general financial plan that was presented to the committees and the board, that let's take advantage of previously issued debt in the interest of mitigating the need to issue more debt. So again, I have no doubt this is an issue that should be, and it should be debated, and it should be debated very publicly and discussed. For my first day in administration, back in, I think it was 2015, we were talking about where to put a highway shop, that it needed to move. And there have been, as Supervisor Straub referenced, the location of that has, and the theory behind it and what it was going to look like has changed immensely over the years. During that time, of course, also costs have escalated for construction. So again, just to ground everyone in the resolution before you today, it is those two things. In my estimation, nothing more, nothing less. Staff have already done, working with the individual you heard on the phone was Mr. Dirksen, one of the lead architect on the project. They've done all the work to get to a place where we're very close to being able to release that bid package for the project. This allows that to happen. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Supervisor Rosenberg, please.
Thank you. With everyone talking, I have a couple of things I want to say now. The first thing is the air quality discussion. I did a quick little look on the DNR's website, and it does appear there are air monitors in Marathon County. I didn't go directly to where the power plant is, but it's probably available, that information. And I would also assume that as a regulated utility, there's probably some data that WPS would have too that we could look into if that was a concern. Secondly, I think the discussion about geothermal is an interesting one, especially since the direct pay, which if you were a private resident, it would be a tax credit, but for a community like us, it would be direct pay. So we would actually get money to support that system. So I think it's a good discussion and investigation for us to continue having. And lastly, I do think maybe it would be worth our while to consider what value engineering looks like for a highway shop like this. I know that we want all the bells and whistles, but maybe it's an opportunity to look at this when we have a plan and then kind of go back through, maybe with somebody else, and see where we'd be able to save some dollars. So thank you.
Supervisor Robinson, please.
Thank you, Chair. Picking up on Supervisor Rosenberg's comments relative to air, there are requirements in both NR 115 relating to fugitive dust requirements, in NR 445 relating to the handling and storage controls for coal dust, and they're required to meet permit requirements associated with it. But this is not a new issue. For some of you, it's a new issue, but we've been wrestling with what to do with our highway facilities for years, and we're we're moving because the current site is not adequate. We can't put our big trucks in the facilities. We have to take the plows off at night, which creates operational inefficiencies and cost and safety concerns for those people changing out those plows in the middle of a ice storm or others. So we're looking for operational efficiencies. We've looked at Stettin, we've looked at Maine, we've looked all over the county relative to where we should locate this facility. This location was selected because it made sense, and it gives us an option relative to the Mosinee garage, which we're going to need to abandon because they have FAA regulations, and we're gonna need to relocate it. We can put that facility in this new facility, creating operational efficiencies and savings as well as cost. This is not out of the line when you start looking at other counties' approaches to highway facilities. We had a number of us went on a tour of the Eau Claire facility a couple of years ago. Construction costs have gone up, but I think that the geothermal gives us an opportunity to reduce some of those operational costs. I know that Supervisor Lemmer and myself have been pushing for how do we reduce the use of therms and kilowatts in the county, reduce our footprint, and most importantly, reduce our operating costs, because the facility itself isn't all of the costs. It's not even a majority of the cost. Most of the costs are operational in nature. So we need to look at how we can design these buildings to save us on that operational budget over the long term. And I think that this does this. But this is a step in the process. It's not the end of the process. It allows us to go forward and gather the information relative to the cost. There may be opportunities to scale back the project once we have those numbers. But I think it's a critical step in us getting the information we need, later bringing back a plan on how we can finance that to this board for final approval.
Supervisor Dickinson, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would echo everything that Supervisor Robinson said, because I was pretty much going to say all of those things. Being on the Infrastructure Committee for 6 years and seeing the struggle and the difficulties of trying to find a location and then finally settling on one and then having to deal with certain issues with that property. I understand the idea of going to referendum, but in my opinion, one of the things that I believe in as a county supervisor is that government does things that people cannot do for themselves. And this facility is exactly one of those things. We're providing a service for the entire county, having this large facility, and there certainly are concerns. There certainly are cost thoughts. You know, maybe you have a tiered system. You say, okay, this is all the bells and whistles, and then you go one level down, and then we decide on what that's going to be. But I would encourage anyone tomorrow to just travel on down to the Quick Trip and then go over to the shop and decide for yourself whether we need a new facility. And if you decide yes, okay, where? And good luck. So we finally kind of nailed it down, and I really think this is a good step in the right direction. Thank you.
Supervisor Coyle, please.
Thank you, Chair. For those that are that have been on the board for a while here, if you're worried about air quality now, that ship has kind of sailed, because when you purchased the land, when the county purchased the land, didn't anybody raise the question why WPS owned it in the first place? It was purchased as a buffer for the coal pile. And in fact, in 2022, that standalone house, WPS had right of first refusal when that house was sold at that point. So I guess my point is that those concerns should have been discussed when you purchased the land. It's kind of too late for that now. So if you're going to go forward with a highway garage at that location, you accepted that when you purchased the land. Secondly, I do not speak on behalf of WPS, but I can tell you, as someone who works there, the pile is groomed constantly. It is watered as required. I have worked at the Weston plant since 2018, and I can count on one hand the amount of times that my car has accumulated a coal film on it while it's been parked there for 12 hours at a time. So some days it's windy, it'll blow. It just, you can groom till your heart's content, but You know, there's a reason we burn subbutaneous coal, because it breaks down very easily. So that's just my 2 cents on it.
Supervisor Sandalski, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I agree. I went toured the facility last week, and I agree. We do need a new facility. There are other ones really getting run down, and I agree we need to invest in it, but I don't think we need to, at that price tag, I think we need to get it down more to the mid-40s where we were when we first talked about it a couple of years, maybe 2 years ago or so. I know we were at a point we're looking at around $45 million, if I recall correctly. I mean, if we could get more meat in the middle and just save some money for the taxpayers, because that's just, it seems quite egregious, almost $60 million for the facility. I feel like around $45 million, if we can get that down around there, we could serve the people and get a new facility that'll serve us well and serve the people well. Thank you.
Supervisor Griner, please.
Thank you, Chair. Regarding some previous comments earlier, just wanted to give a little bit of information just to clarify things. The village of Weston is 22 square miles. The city of Wausau is 20 square miles. Marathon County is larger than the state of Rhode Island. We maintain 600 miles of county highways, dozens of bridges, hundreds of culverts, and we are contracted to service 800 miles of state highways. Comparing these, I don't believe it's not feasible. It's an apples to oranges comparison. And to echo what the administrator said earlier, this is merely directing staff to seek bids for the project. We won't know what it will cost until we get these back. When we find our number, then it will give us the opportunity to cut these things out, depending on cost, feasibility, and all of these things. And I can't say I speak for all members of the infrastructure committee, but we would welcome anyone to come to our meetings and voice your opinions there. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Supervisor Lemmer, please.
Thank you, Chair Gibbs. And to be clear, I am actually quite excited about geothermal and the possibilities that it has to mitigate some of our energy costs. So just to put that out there and clear that record if it wasn't clear, it would be helpful for me, as I still am weighing very heavily how I feel about this project. I did go to Eau Claire. I did go on the facilities tour. Fantastic. It was great. I do encourage you, like Supervisor Dickinson said, to go take a tour. And maybe that would be something that the general public should have an opportunity to see as well, because there are some definite deficiencies there. And then just the last thing, again, I'm assuming based on what's in the agenda, this is coming to HR in October. Is there an operational cost comparison that you could provide to, I don't know, make the case for us a little bit more concretely?
Operational comparison between
The current facility and what it's going to do to move over, you know, especially as we look at just efficiencies that are gained and whatnot.
I think with a larger facility, you're going to have slightly larger space to heat and cool and all that. But that being said, I'll work with Ned and Troy to see, there's going to be some assumptions in there, because a lot, like I said, some of the equipment you get, is more efficient. There's a design range in terms of what you would expect. And so I did talk with our counterpart in Dunn County. They explored geothermal and solar and then moved to geothermal. And they have a report actually that is more granular, but still has a lot of assumptions baked into it. So we can try to put some of that together. I don't know it'll be exactly what you're looking for, but it can be more illustrative, I guess, in terms of like what the existing facilities costs are. But the other part of it, like some of the operational efficiencies, you can explain them. They don't show up on paper that easily, but we can explain some of the things that you lose where you are now or you gain by a new facility in terms of, storing equipment, longevity of equipment, the startup time for vehicles, the startup time for staff, it's things like that. So we can put some bullet points together to try to paint a better picture if that's useful.
Supervisor Nyseth, please.
Thank you, Chair. I did take the tour of the facility, of the Marathon County facilities, and I guess I'd like to say that I'm, on the record, would like to see this go through this phase 3. I'd like to see it approved. When I toured the facility, I got to tell you, I'll put it on record, it was a scary place. Okay? Buildings are atrocious. I can't believe it. These people have done miracles with what they have. I mean, they all should have medals for dealing with the conditions that they have out there. So to say, I mean, just to look at the age and the condition of the current site, I couldn't believe it. My background is 30 years of construction management, finance, all of that stuff. I look at these buildings, I'm like, how are these people doing this? It's amazing what they do. And the cost, someone mentioned $80 million. I know that's an estimate. Nothing's in stone yet. We don't even have estimates yet. So I don't know, anybody can throw out any figures out there because we're just talking, trying to figure out what that costs. And that's what this phase is, this next phase is going to do for us, going to tell us that. And okay, if it's ugly, if the numbers are ugly, then maybe we back off and look at something else. We go to a referendum. I don't know what the next step is. We have to go there. We have to get to this next step to find out. Someone mentioned that, this is going to be 4 times the cost of these existing buildings, the new fire station, the city shops in Weston, new police station. Well, I can tell you what, the facility space that these people need for the trucks and everything they have, the equipment is incredible. And it's probably 4 times the area of those facilities that were mentioned in the cost that was mentioned. So the thought that this might cost $60 million or more doesn't shock me at all. I've been in construction a long time. Doesn't shock me one bit. I just think that these folks are working in an atrocious situation right now, and we need to amend that, take care of that. That's all I have.
Vice Chair Boots, please.
I concur with Supervisor Nyseth. I've been in the trades a long time, and if you think buildings going down, you're wrong. A supervisor made a comment, well, it was 40 million a few years back. Yep, sure was. That's what construction's doing, 5 to 10% a year. Just in pay increases for the electricians this year, it's $5, $5 on the check per year. That's what the trades are doing because they can't find the labor. The data centers aren't helping because they're taking a lot of the labor. So if you think construction costs are going down, you're wrong. Value engineering is already in our process at Marathon County. So once these bids are out, we can look at that, see what our value engineering is. We also should look at, in my mind, a voluntary alternate for the geothermal. You can always put in a voluntary alternate and say, what would it be cost if we did a voluntary alternate just to go regular? 5 years from now, I get what, we always talk about doing some now and doing some later, remobilizing, doing things like that. I think 5 years from now, we're probably looking at a 25% higher cost just by the trend now. That can change, but we just keep kicking the can down the road. And every time we kick the can down the road, we're just making more and more expense for ourselves is all we're doing. So I will be voting for this. Again, we're just getting the numbers at this point. We can always look at them and see what we want to do after the fact.
Supervisor Seibert, please.
Thank you, Chairman Gibbs. I've been here a long time, and I was on an infrastructure committee when this was first brought up. And the reason it went over is because we talked about the value of the old shop. And back then, that's probably 8 years ago, it was $10 to $14 million. So what's being done with this? Are we looking at marketing it? Has it been marketed? Do we know the value? And how much will that come off? Will that whole value come off the new shop? Or will we spend it someplace else?
Administrator Leonard, want to?
Sure. So there was a presentation. I appreciate the question. There was a presentation a year or a year and a half ago, I want to say, to the infrastructure and or the HR finance committee. We did, at the direction of the committee, go out and get some work done by Phillips Valuation, and they looked at what are the options, to your point, Supervisor, about redevelopment of that parcel. And I will start by saying one thing. What you get for a parcel is what someone pays you. We have seen that with some of our redevelopment efforts. That big caveat aside, the report from Phillips Valuation talked about, to your point, what are the ways to potentially market that and redevelop that parcel. I, as your administrator, would absolutely strongly encourage you to, should you decide to move, and so to your first answer, have we marketed the parcel? No, you haven't decided we're moving yet. Should you decide we're moving and we build a new facility, I would strongly advise we do that and that we put it out and see what the interest is in that parcel. Chris and I have had meetings. We know the city of Wausau has expressed interest in it for some of their operations. We should do that. And any any revenue you get, I would strongly advise you to put, absolutely, I think to your underlying point, back into the project to mitigate the need to further utilize the North Central Healthcare revenues that I talked about when I made the presentation. You should do that. That is good fiscal sense. Ultimately, of course, that's up to the county board, all of those steps that we talked about, but I think your point is very well taken. How can you maximize the value of that existing parcel to mitigate the overall cost of the project?
Supervisor Gao, please.
Thank you, Chair Gibbs. I understand Chair Supervisor Krebs' concerns about the cost of a project. I individually was a member of the advisory committee in Weston's proposal project. We had almost a month going over the procedure. I agree with Supervisor Greiner. When you take a look at the Weston project, which I was very involved with, that project was very much consolidated several buildings, several positions in there. I spent 10 years at the facility in West Street. And let me tell you, since I left, I think I put 1, 2, or 3 additions on it. And when I was there, we had a hard time getting the equipment in at the point in time. I'm amazed it took this long from Meridian County to get this point. So I'm looking at the cost of things changing over the years. Vice Chair Boots is so much correct. The cost of facilities has gone up tremendously. And matter of fact, if you wait another 2 or 3 months, it's even going to go up more again. What we're doing now is taking bids, and I believe the facility at West Street has 4 or 5 buildings having different things in place. We're looking at one facility, I think, a large facility that's going to cover everything for the highway department. So I don't see we should debate this any further. Let's move forward. We're just getting bids, getting results, and if you don't like them, you can start chopping the project. But you better take a look at the plans, take a look at the engineering, take a look at what they're involved, what the operation piece is, and you'll see that they are trying to put a facility together that's going to cover for quite some time. This county needs one. And also, as said earlier, Mosley's shop was an auxiliary shop. That no longer can be available, and that also can be combined in this shop. Thank you.
Supervisor Jensen, please.
Thank you, Chair. So I'll just say what I've heard a lot for comments tonight. So this resolution helps us understand what an optimal highway facility costs, adequate storage, it centralizes functions, and it reduces wear from leaving equipment sit out in the seasons. There's no commitment to building, there's no commitment to financing. And with that, I'll be voting for this. Thank you.
Supervisor Carvelli, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have a question about what if this doesn't pass? And then I'll have a follow-up after that.
Whoever wants to.
Well, I mean, effectively, we've built in these stops along the way, like we did with previous projects, to make sure that there were off-ramps for the board, check-ins, times to update and bring additional information, see what questions people had. The full intent is like, if this were to pass, the October presentation would dig into a lot of what Supervisor Gao was mentioning in terms of schematics and what it looks like in a lot more detail in terms of here's where we landed. even with alternate bids involved or some value engineering as well. So if it doesn't pass, then staff isn't authorized to do it. And so we would effectively, figure out if the county board, I mean, this is me speculating, but if there was a time you wanted to do it, go back to committee, bring it back in the future. The only thing with timing there, which is not deterministic in any sense, it doesn't mean, I'm not trying to put any pressure on anybody by saying so, but we know that precast concrete panels are 10 months out. So in terms of construction schedule, we can always change that. But I think the window for what we're ideally looking at would be between now and the end of the year, so that you could get that done and then still stick to the schedule you're on, which would mesh with a lot of what Administrator Leonard had done from the financing perspective. That can all be adjusted and changed if we have to ultimately, but it would be effectively a pause button. We would figure out what you want us to bring back and we would bring it back.
Thank you. My follow-up is I'd like to call the question.
Okay, is there a second to question being called? Second has been called. The second has been made by Supervisor Straub. Question is called. It is not debatable. It does require a 2/3 majority vote. It stops debate. We do have in the queue 2 additional individuals, Supervisor Radke and Supervisor Sandalski, who will be recognized if the vote to end debate is approved. Again, this is non-debatable. Question's been called. A yes vote will end debate on the item. And a no vote without a 2/3 majority, we will continue to debate the resolution. Is everybody clear on the vote? Please do not touch any, make any motions or any seconds on your computers, on your screens. All right, is everybody clear on what the motion is? The motion is to end debate, does require a 2/3 majority vote. It is not debatable. We will proceed to vote. And we'll proceed. And the motion is carried, but is not unanimous. We will move on then to the 2 remaining individuals that were on Supervisor Radke is next.
Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate like what was said and others, the longer we kick this can down the road, the more it's going to cost us. And also consider that, you're combining the main shop with the Mosney shop to all under one roof, which we're trying to do with other facilities in the county, which I think is a good idea. That's all I have. Thank you.
Supervisor Sandalski is the last to request to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to put a request that if we get this all taken care of and built and all that, that we, at the end of it, that we put this up for sale and put it up for fair market value, and then apply that towards the building of the new facility, so we can relieve some of the expenses off of that. But basically, because fair market value, because I feel like when we sell things to other government entities, we sell them for pennies on a dollar, so we end up losing a lot of money. But that's all I got. Thank you.
All right, the question's been called. The last person requested to speak. We are now proceeding to vote. The vote is on authorizing staff to proceed with Phase 3 construction of the proposed new highway facility, Resolution 49-26. Everybody clear on the vote? And we'll proceed. And the motion is carried, but is not unanimous. Moving on to item E19, amending the 2026 budget by $429,793 for the Local Road Improvement Program, LRIP funding, Resolution 50-26. Motion by Supervisor Drabek and seconded by Supervisor Gao. Any discussion? Any discussion? All right, seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. And we'll proceed. And the motion is carried and is unanimous. Thank you. Item E20, removing the seasonal weight limits for County Trunk Highway X, Resolution 54-26. Supervisor Griner with the motion, Supervisor Mask with the second. Any discussion on Resolution 54-26? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. And we'll proceed, excuse me, Supervisor Poole, please. It's lagging, so Supervisor Poole is aye. Supervisor Endres?
Oh, shoot.
That one's out of order.
I'll have to add it. Shoot.
All right, we have it corrected on the voting system. We'll do a revote, and that last vote was deleted on the resolution 51-26. So we are now back to resolution 54-26, the removal of the season weight limits on County Trunk Highway X, resolution 54-26. Is everybody clear on the motion? The motion is to approve, and we'll proceed to vote. And we'll proceed, and the motion is carried unanimously. Now, on to item F, Public Safety Committee and the Human Resources, Finance, and Property Committee, amending the fund balance policy to create a non-lapsing contingency fund for Medical Examiner's Office, 51-26. Please hold off before anyone tries to make the motion. The clerk needs to enter now this resolution in the voting system. 51-26. Just majority. All right, now I will accept the motion, and motion by Supervisor Arstead, seconded by Supervisor Krebs. Any discussion? Any discussion? All right, seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. And we'll proceed. And the motion is carried, but is not unanimous. Thank you. We are down to Human Resources, Finance, and Property Committee. Item G22, approving the 2027 Capital Improvement Program tentative project list, also known as our CIP list, Resolution 52-26. Motion by Supervisor Coyle and seconded by Supervisor Robinson. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. And we'll proceed. And the motion is carried, but is not unanimous. Thank you. Item G23, approval of the Marathon County donation policy. Supervisor Robinson, Chair of the HR Finance Committee, has requested to pull that and bring that forward at the next county board meeting. Moving on to item G24, modifying the existing health department fee schedule for tattoo and piercing licensure, R53-26, and I would like to ask the Administrator Leonard to discuss this first, please.
Sure. Thank you, Mr.
Leonard.
Chair. And at your table, you should all have a brief memo. I'll be very brief. Brandy and Mark Cannonberg are in the back. I want to thank them for taking the time to meet with us following your last meeting, where there were some questions about the proposal. Short explanation. We had very, I think, good conversations with them, gained some insight. The proposal is, our request, staff request, is to modify what it was in your packet in terms of the fee schedule to be consistent with what is on your tables. In short, that does a couple of things. One, it removes the permanent tattoo and piercing establishments from the update that we were discussing. It changes the temporary licensing structure from a tiered structure based on 1 to 6 practitioners and moves that to 1 to 8, changes the fee slightly for those. And it really, to clarify through our application process, that it really is based on number of practitioners. They don't need to form their own groups, and that the event organizer can serve as the kind of global applicant. So with all those things, that is set forth in your in the memo at your table, and I did actually take the opportunity to draft some language should someone wish to make a motion to make that amendment. I would also say that the Cannonbergs have offered to help us as we implement this, and in recognition of kind of the fact that their event is very near in time. There is a component of this that would essentially be a tiered implementation, that any event that takes place prior to November 1st, 2026 would be charged 60% of the fees that are laid out. Any event that takes place after that would be 100%. So I think that lays out all the changes.
Okay, Supervisor Hagan with the motion, Supervisor Marash with the second. Supervisor Seibert, please. All right. Supervisor Jensen, please.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to offer the motion to amend what we have in the packet here, if I can proceed with that.
So the offer is a substitute amendment that was offered in print by Administrator Leonard. Is that the motion?
Yes.
And seconded by, just a second, we need to get that in. Please do not push motion or second. Okay, Supervisor Rosenberg with the second on the amendment. Is there any discussion on the amendment that was offered and explained to by Administrator Leonard? Supervisor Rosenberg, please.
Yeah, I just want to thank administration and also the Kannenbergs for taking some time to sort this out and making sure that we have something that works right now. I know we were under some pressure, and especially after a 5-hour meeting last week, so thank you.
I'll defer the thanks to the Health Department and the Kannenbergs, but.
Thank you, Health Department.
Any further discussion? All right, we are voting on the amendment. So is everybody clear? We're just voting on the amendment first. All right, we'll proceed to vote. Supervisor Greiner? If you provide your result vocally. Aye. Thank you. And Supervisor Watson, please. Aye. Supervisor Watson, aye. And we'll proceed. And the motion is carried and is unanimous. Thank you. Moving on to item H25, the count.
As amended.
Oh, I apologize. That is now as amended. Now we're back to the resolution as amended. Again, the resolution is to modify the existing health department fee schedule for tattoo and piercing licensure 5326 as amended. Any further discussion? All right, seeing none, we'll vote now as amended. And we'll proceed. Oops, Supervisor Watson. Supervisor Watson, aye. All right, we'll proceed. And the motion is carried, but is not unanimous. Now we are down to item H. From the Executive Committee, County Engagement and Alliant Energy Reliability relative to the Hub City Wind Project, Resolution 55-26.
Chair, can we take a break?
There's been a request for a recess. Does everybody want to take a 5-minute recess?
Requires it?
I don't believe it.
Every 2 hours you have to take a break. We have no rule. Okay.
Being how the next item is probably going to entail some discussion, I'm going to declare a 5-minute recess. But again, please, let's make sure this is a 5-minute recess. We're going to reconvene at 8:30.
Can't do it.
What do you think of the amendment?
I'm sorry. Do you want it? Oh, I gave it to her. Okay.